Welcome, everyone, and this is a presentation that will be addressing the theme of social media, communication through technology, and things that we should know about the history of communications and where that started, and the influences we already had, and some of the contributing factors to the society we have today, the organization of many of the platforms and culture itself, and uh, a lot of the things that we do and that we're used to, how slowly as certain events came to fruition, the internet became a place that was a space for innovation and a space for people to interact with each other, especially, and that's the focus here, um, with a lot of room for cultural exchange and a lot of room for connection between people from different parts of the world, but not exclusively. That was what happened. We saw an evolution from a social media landscape that was pretty much a timid place where people would share only some of the details about themselves and not include much information at all. And that evolving into a landscape where it's possible to retrieve information about people that has to do with every aspect of their lives, and that works in synchrony with the marketing capacities to provide an experience that is an experience of consumption and an experience that has a lot to do with this relationship with the world of marketing. And we saw how transformations in communication were important because of what happened to the communication platforms and the culture it had, each of them, and the pressures that it faced to become something else, to become um, a place where people felt comfortable and also were comfortable with certain kinds of content being produced, being shown to them, and that more or less shaped the trajectory towards we which we we paved, right? And I come with you with a presentation. I want to say a few things. I am not a person who strongly um, defends the use of artificial intelligence technologies. I have my opinion on it. I think that the general public and the common user is typically a person who um, will produce online whatever type of content it is, and this person was suddenly faced with a situation where they needed to talk to lots of people at the same time, and they were being asked to talk about many topics at the same time. So the need to set themselves as individuals who had certain beliefs and an identity and things that they cared about was more or less um, not compensated with, but yeah, in a way, the need for an individual to be who they are was counterbalanced by the need to adapt to a discourse that was not only social, but it was global. And so this contributed with a very strange way of facing individual character and transformations in communication that had a profound impact in their development. And it's important to discuss the development of these communication platforms. And so I come here with a presentation that shows a little bit about this, but it was made with AI. And I made adjustments on that presentation, and I hope it's a good source material for you to discuss with your students, with yourself, and anybody who's interested in the theme can use this presentation as a way to engage people in a further debate. So let me just uh, set the document here, and then I'll come back to talk to you. It's been so long that I've used Zoom that I forgot how to share things. So it's a little bit weird. There's a big button here that says I can share. So I will make this into slides, and here we are. This is about healthy conversations. Let me put myself at the very uh, extreme of the screen, so you can see the slides clearly. Healthy conversations, a debate about what's on and off social media. Uh, to explain why I picked this title, I have to talk about the fact that a lot of people, especially digital natives, are people who can't get off their phones, can't get off their devices. And so when I talk about what's on social media and also about what's off, I intend to show the differences between the expectations that we have and the behaviors that we observe on social media and offline without devices, uh, making a bridge of communication between two or more people. And so we're thinking about family relationships, we're thinking about going out the street and meeting strangers and bumping into them, and the kinds of behaviors that we expect from strangers and the kinds of behaviors that we expect in real life versus the internet, the kinds of behaviors we exhibit online and offline. I will mention the situation of talking to strangers because I think it's an interesting point and it's very little discussed in the media, but I will save that for later. This presentation explores healthy online conversations. We will explore social media's evolution and its influence. We'll examine self-representation, content creation, and the impact of technology. This presentation promotes insightful analysis over quick assumptions. We'll emphasize the need for moderation in online interactions. So I don't know if I look so much like this guy and have such a great level of attendance, although these people look like they come from a Star Trek starship, but I don't know, maybe they have a uniform, but that's a little bit weird. Um, and I was certainly not being wearing a suit and a belt with my shirt like that. I'll be, I don't have a beard, and so this is so it's an interesting representation. But anyway, it's just a debate. I hope that people are having these debates across the spectrum of, like, for example, communications, colleges, and journalism, and even humanities, right? Where we discuss what is social media, and we discuss linguistics, and we analyze language, and analyzing what else is there besides language in social media becomes an important factor. So understanding what the internet is and is not, and especially understanding the differences between the online world and the offline world will be important. But why healthy conversations? This is exactly the debate I want to have. I see a scenario today where our conversations are not healthy. And so I want to investigate why that is and what happens with communication for us to see ourselves in that situation. So I come with a little bit of history, and I talk about the dawn of online interaction. So here you have, if you remember, in 2000, um, let's put a number to this, 2004, maybe, you had Microsoft uh, with tools like MSN. MSN Messenger was a Microsoft platform, and we all use it. We all used it. Um, Later on, uh, there were initiatives like AIM from AOL, and Yahoo Chat was also a thing. In Brazil, UOL chat rooms were very popular. People used to go there to uh, pretty much it was a beginning of talking to strangers in UOL chat rooms, and there was a culture that forms there when people asked basic information about who they were interacting with, and maybe the conversation went somewhere else, but there was an indication that people were interested in more than just interacting and talking about their preferences and what they like to do and getting to know each other, or even the very case for sharing personal information was very much restricted because it was much more interesting to pretend they were someone else and to interact because it was fun to assume a different persona on the internet. So that was the beginning of chat rooms, and I'm sure there are many kinds of different chat rooms in the world, but UOL is just one example where people would literally say that anything goes, right? So the chat room at some point had this as a title, anything goes. This was the section of the web where it was anything was possible, anything was allowed. And so people went there, and people went a little bit off the rails. And so we had other initiatives that became more or less mainstream, for example, Fotolog and Orkut. And so we had the beginning of social media because it was basically like Instagram. We had pictures, and we had um, the ability to comment and to interact with people and to follow and to uh, be able to see all of the person's posts on a feed where you would comment and you would receive a reply and you receive a like and so on and so forth. So this was a very embryonic period of the internet, but at the same time, it revealed the possibility of building a bigger, larger scale product that later became Instagram. It's also interesting to notice that many things happened across the years. So, for example, on my Substack, which is evobr.substack.com, I talk about a platform called Gifio, which was a platform that allowed people to interact just like a social media. That was after the creation of Facebook. I'm going to talk about Facebook in a moment. And they interacted with GIFs. So they posted a GIF of themselves. It could be someone drawing, could be someone showing their window or their bedroom or their desktop or whatever. And it could be someone showing their bodies. So this was something very common, became something very common. And it could be someone showing their hairstyle. It could be someone showing their cats or dogs. It could be someone showing their homes or their street. It could be something that people at the time with iPhones had the ability to do anywhere in the city and post a gift to this social media platform that was called Gifio. So it was a very transformational movement, and it connected many people across multiple parts of the globe. And personally, I have made a number of friends over Gifio, and they became people who I had in my contacts, people who I trusted, people who I knew, and people who were my friends. And some of them until this day I have very good and fond memories of. So this was a very interesting thing. Orkut was a phenomenon that preceded Facebook, which included a lot of the things that we know on social media, but particularly it included the function of communities where people would create a team, and for that team, that would be similar to Reddit, which is also listed here, a way for people to debate something related to that topic. So this was the main function of Orkut, but of course, people they had a functionality that they called scraps, which was basically personal messages for people. And this was before the DM. Instead of creating an internal mechanism for people to talk with themselves, with themselves, with other people, um, and interact with their friends in a natural way in their own private space. They had this public function of scraps. This was later added to, the things that people were thinking about how to evolve and how to innovate. And so they created a way for people to uh, uh, do private messaging. So this happened in the Facebook era. But there was also Bebo, MySpace, of course, and Reddit, which plays an important role until this day, and recently had an IPO, which is an initial public offering, which is when the stock market starts investing in that company. So Reddit had such a relevance that it was created, there was an IPO, and it took long to happen, actually, but it proves that the platform has relevance And many people say that Reddit today has models that some people don't have, and they are completely unique and the right thing to do on social media. So you can find discussions about that if you want. If you look for them, they'll be there. People defending Reddit's formula and what went right with what they did with this social platform. Basically, a forum where everybody can talk, but at the same time, you have votes up and down. So this contributes to the health of the discussion. And users who contribute the most are rewarded. And this is something that makes the platform very interesting to use. And also a variety of themes that can be anything you think about, the freedom to create any discussion you want. And if you don't find a theme that people have already created a subreddit to, you can create your own. So, a very interesting model and something that people will remember in the future, I think, as an interesting way of doing business. A great way for businesses to know if they're doing good or bad because people post their most honest commentary about a business and many other things. It's a forum of discussion that is heated, that in the sense of productivity, and that contains sometimes many of the gems of the internet. So people without uh, a very clear notion about what's happening online or who they're talking to or how much they're revealing or how lonely they are to be able to to get online and talk about something very personal in their lives and ask for advice. A similar mechanism was seen on Yahoo Answers, for example, right? So people would ask for advice using Yahoo Answers, and all sorts of things could happen. These platforms mark the start of massive scale online interaction. Each platform had its unique features that shapes the way people communicated online. Their influence paved the way for the social media landscape we know today. The evolution of online interaction highlights the importance of understanding its impact on society and personal connections. Of course, later came something that we all have an opinion about, but it's important to understand that many things happened before that. But when Facebook came to the front in more or less 2010, gaining the mainstream, it emerged as a dominant force, transforming the landscape of social media. So, a lot of things were seen on Facebook. The need for identity, real identity, and authenticity to be the main ideals that the platform had and the expectations from users. So self-representation was important. Users would navigate the platform, completing profiles and expressing themselves as they wished, completing profiles as they wished. They could reveal more or less information about themselves. They could reveal nothing. They could later on, Facebook, as we know, created many privacy shortcuts despite its data sharing uh, practices, right? But the navigation of the platform was something that a lot of people became used to, and they liked pages, they followed their friends. Back then, when the algorithm wasn't so present, we used to see our friends were posting almost in real time. And then, of course, came Twitter, which was an interesting evolution of social media. And the notion of timeline and what was happening, including in the slogan that was propagandized by Twitter. Uh, People wanted to know what was happening in real time, and the notion of news transformed, and the idea that important stories would break out at any moment and you should be informed was something very present on Twitter. But on Facebook, it was a personal self-expression, and especially the private communication of people because messaging apps rose, right? We had Messenger, WhatsApp, and also a competitor of Facebook, which was Snapchat, which redefined online communication simply because smartphones weren't a thing yet. And when they became a thing, they quickly provided people to with tools to communicate privately, and that was uh, something that Snapchat did very well. But Snapchat didn't have the same idea as Facebook. The idea of identity and authenticity on Facebook was very much represented by family values and telling who your dad was, who your mom was, who your partner was, and they showed who you were committed to in a relationship with this person. And there were tools for you to officialize things over Facebook, and it became quickly part of the culture. And relationship updates became celebrated or talked about, or any kind of thing would happen on Facebook when they started to do these things. Someone celebrating a new job. Uh, uh, an interesting thing happens, which was LinkedIn's rise, which pushed to make the internet a more serious place. So notifications about work were celebrated. Someone getting a new job, someone getting a certification, someone traveling for work, someone getting a promotion. And so people would celebrate this kind of thing and not personal gains or a walk in the park or a breakfast of champions or something like that. Visiting a place and the famous check-ins, right? A lot happened that transformed this into informal communication, LinkedIn into a more professional profile and degree to which people revealed what they thought and measured their discourse. Of course, as the internet evolved, we saw an immense influence from meme culture and an evolution of language. Memes changed online language and culture. Abbreviations became very common. So things like, oh my God, were not seen before they became internet popular. And things that we know today that are very common, like abbreviations like uh, uh, ASL was one of the most uh, common ones, which stands for age, sex, and language. So when people were trying to communicate, they would find a need to first know how old someone was, if it was a man or a woman, in case they weren't showing their webcams clearly enough for recognition, and in case uh, they didn't know from the speech and from the language they spoke. where they were from. So they were prompted to say their age, their sex, and their language. ASL became a very common abbreviation, but later came other abbreviations like, you know, from BFF, best friend forever, to what do you look like, WYD, which is very common to this day. Influencer marketing. Brands quickly adapted, utilizing online platforms to reach a wider audience and engage with customers. This shift marked a new era in digital marketing strategies. Of course, companies saw this in a different way, right? When companies saw that there were so many people presenting their image of themselves, they wanted to find a way to resonate with people who would have ideas about a company that would need to be aligned with the ideas that they had about themselves. And so they analyzed the representation of people and they saw their brands and their products as things that needed to be more similar to the representation of self that people were providing to the internet database. So the influence on marketing was the influence of users on marketing and also of memes in marketing because humor became something quite popular in advertising. Visual platforms rise. Instagram and Pinterest revolutionized social media by focusing on visual content, showcasing a shift towards a more visually oriented online experience. This was definitely the case. The rise of the digital camera was one thing. The rise of the cell phone with the camera was a completely different level of, um uh, you know, um, uh, engagement between people and overall experience where people would see what people looked like and they had expectations of seeing more. And you had a dispute to see who looked better on social media. And that was very easy to do, and people were prompted to do that. Facebook, of course, became was accused of promoting a culture that was not healthy for example, teenagers, because the obsession with visual representations of the self resulted in experiences of self-harm and suicide among teens and many serious, very serious cases that were promoted by an exacerbation of online culture with no guidance. So this visual orientation had many interesting things that happened, but at the same time, it promoted a more and more funneled vision of how people saw themselves and how people wanted to be, who they wanted to be, and how they promoted themselves was very much in relation to how their social media represented themselves. And so they created that. They became content creators and promoters of their own personal brand. So that means to say that there was an effort for people to put their face on their content and to show themselves to the world as part of an effort to create engagement between people who would be looking for someone good looking. And that was, of course, problematic because you'd have to have different kinds of criterion for people to interact online. But that was not the case, and Instagram became king. These platforms allowed users to share photos, illustrations, and other visual content easily. Content creation became a business or not. We saw the rise of influencers. Influencers transformed online discourse. We saw the internet's comment section getting wild, and people would say anything that they wanted on the internet's comment section, and they would be very often rude and impolite at best, and too direct or too disrespectful and too vile, and even promote some serious case of hate speech that was condemnable. And until people realized what they needed to do with the comment section, it was a land where everybody was free to say whatever they wanted. So it was a very tumultuous period, and the people responsible for managing internet platforms had to provide a safe space for everyone to post content and not receive a death threat or something of the kind. So, much less serious than that, but still problematic, is the fact that anybody could comment and say anything they wanted, negative or positive. So a lot of people came to the internet to make bad comments about other people. So the internet commentator came to rise. So a lot of people assimilated this culture as something that was proper of the internet, and because they were doing this all day, every day, they became professional internet commentators. So this is some of the most important developments that we had to promote what we have today. There were, of course, extreme cases like platforms such as 4chan, which doesn't really need to be commented on because there's many bad content, many instances of bad content that you can see on this platform. And it's basically a forum that has some categories of discourse, of interests of people, and people can talk as they wish about topics um, related to the original thread and the original poster's idea, but people are very unhinged, and people will go to many lengths to track you down, to reveal your true identity if you say something or anything at all that doesn't fall into their desired communication. If you expose yourself, even worse, they will definitely do something against you. And they will be quiet, and they will organize groups that form uh, and continue to exist for years and years. Recently, I saw a story that talked about 4chan's moderators on Wired, if I'm not mistaken. And um, this is something important. I mean, talking about how, especially Twitter, but I think today, of course, we have Blue Sky, but Instagram is also a big force of content promotion. But in terms of digital literacy, I mean, people didn't know that a magazine like Wired was one devoted to internet culture and things related to computers. So they didn't know that this vehicle existed. And so as more and more vehicles came to fruition, came to existence, um, people got more literate in terms of knowing about the existence of different kinds of communication platforms and styles. So it was a very democratic space that was forming with the free media and capacity to communicate to lots and lots of people and to be shared and to create your own media vehicle and blogs and things like that. Another platform is Tumblr, and Tumblr in particular served as a hub for niche communities to thrive and share content that pushed boundaries and challenged conventions. The visually rich and highly customizable platform was renowned by its diverse user base and served as a breeding ground for new trends in internet culture. I saw this happen, and it's true. Influencers transform. Influencers are a different topic. We saw many people start YouTube videos, especially, and we saw that these people were very much involved with marketing efforts. So influencers transform online discourse by leveraging their online presence to shape trends and influence consumer behavior. The entrance comment sections have evolved into dynamic spaces where individuals can connect, share opinions, and foster online communities. Now, a different aspect of this is the workplace demands versus online culture. In the workplace, we saw job expectations rise, increasing standards to maintain online culture. So what does that mean? That if you want to have a life of your own on the internet, you have to know how to separate things. As a result, employees are often expected to navigate and contribute to online culture. This was a movement from companies to get closer to users, requiring them to be fluent in the latest trends and internet phenomena. More and more businesses uh, became involved in the business of internet trends, uh, which was in itself a business. The creation of something that would be talked about by millions of people. This shift in workplace demands can create a dual identity for individuals as they balance professional expectations with online cultural understanding. So one thing was your online persona, another was you at work. Many people had problems separating one thing from the other and making the employer see the difference between one and the other because they were watching. College expectations influence how people present themselves online. College environments often encourage students to engage with diverse perspectives and practices, which can shape their online personas. Many students find themselves navigating the fine line between expressing their individuality and adhering to social expectations when cultivating their online presence. This influence from college environments can lead individuals to adopt certain behaviors and styles that align with their personal and professional aspirations. Of course, going to college is a pathway to living a successful life in your profession, and uh, the experience of college is little talked about. I mean, many different colleges have many different experiences to offer, and so this would vary in different places of the world, especially I think in American universities where you need to pay insane amounts of money to get admitted into a college and to have a passing grade that is, very high, and the demands in terms of social mobility are very controversial, so to speak. Smartphones. This also changed workplace culture, and in comparison with online culture, we saw that we had to focus on one thing at work, and when we were alone, on our own, at home, with our smartphone, we were completely different people. Smartphones revolutionized the way people connect and access information, paving the way for increased productivity and efficiency in both personal and professional settings. This widespread adoption of smartphones has reshaped communication norms and blurred the boundaries between work and leisure time. Now, something that was also important was the proliferation of apps with Android and iOS becoming the norms. and the only way that people could access the internet in many ways, in many cases, there was three things that I think if I had done this, I would have pointed out different things, but the AI pointed that we had a lot of business innovation. The power of marketing was, of course, a very important point to mention, and massive communication. So the internet becomes a field for business innovation. This was, of course, seen on the apps that were created by professionals of, software and stuff like that. Professionals that dealt with the internet as a business. The power of marketing. Marketing takes over, enabling rapid scaling. So the marketing world pretty much swallowed the whole thing and offered more and more content to the masses. Massive communication, global communication becomes easier than ever before. But the health of the conversation is a factor that we need to take into account. The era of meeting strangers. This would be the ideal uh, that we strive for and the thing that we want the most out of the internet. Meetups are one thing. Meetup apps became more widespread. This shift results in increased opportunities for networking and creating new connections, transforming the way people form relationships and interact with others, both socially and professionally. The ease of use and accessibility of meetup apps led to a surge in people meeting strangers online, fostering, maybe that's true, maybe that's not, fostering a culture of collaboration, learning, and exploration in various areas of interest. Of course, it also led to many people being, xenophobic against certain ethnicities and so on and so forth. And prejudice of all kinds becoming more and more clear to see on the interactions that we saw on the internet. Judgments that were quick, like we said in the beginning of the presentation, quick assumptions were the most common thing about internet interactions. So people looked at your face and saw you as one kind of person, as the person who did this or that, a person who believed this or that, person who was entitled to this or that, or not entitled to this or that. So if they wanted to treat you like someone subhuman, they were allowed to because the First Amendment uh, allowed for that to happen. Interaction. Internet strangers interact more than ever. The increased interaction cultivates diverse perspectives, some of them extreme, of course. This is what the AI is not saying, and promotes global collaboration. Of course, this collaboration can be the creation of hate groups that uh, gather a lot of people with extreme ideals and promotes the ability to organize from them. So this can be something very dangerous. Global collaboration is what the AI thought was a better way of explaining what happens, right? They can collaborate in many different things. Collaboration is not necessarily a good thing. You can collaborate to destruct the world, or you can collaborate to create a better world for everybody. So which one is it gonna be? Expanding horizons beyond geographical limitations. Online platforms foster a sense of community among strangers, sometimes, right? Creating spaces for shared interest and mutual support. The era of meeting strangers online has revolutionized the way people connect and engage with others, breaking down barriers and facilitating meaningful relationships. But of course, then came the parental concerns. This might be what everybody wants to talk about, right? Parents express worries about online interactions. They are concerned about the safety and well-being of their children, particularly regarding the potential risks associated to meeting strangers online. Many parents emphasize the importance of educating their children. Many parents, I don't know who they are, uh, about online safety practices and monitoring their digital interactions to mitigate potential dangers. This moderation, of course, can be very much invasive. Understanding and addressing these concerns can help people navigate the evolving landscape of online relationships in a responsible and secure manner. So we saw, of course, one of the bigger things that happened, and I think this is a very good graph because we have an actual representation of who rules the web, vertical video, and rapid content creation. Popular platforms rise, such as TikTok, shortened messages became more and more concise and quick, and people had more and more context than ever online. Some final thoughts. Navigating the new media landscape. We need careful analysis, not quick assumptions. Moderation is essential to prevent dangerous online behavior. There have been many changes in recent media history. Understanding these changes is crucial in our digital world. Adapting to these changes requires a proactive approach, staying informed about the latest trends, and empowering individuals to make informed decisions. By fostering online communication and setting guidelines for online behavior, we create a safer environment for all users, especially children, in today's ever-evolving digital landscape. Some final thoughts from me. I think that it's important to understand that when we come to the internet with the intention of talking to someone and we find many opportunities in the world of apps and in websites and even in buttons by mainstream social media, we know that we have to make the conversation happen in a natural way. And some people have different expectations about each part of the web. Some people have expectations about LinkedIn. Some people have expectations about WhatsApp. Some people have expectations about Instagram. And if you post something that's not appropriate on Instagram, you're gonna be judged. If you post something that's not appropriate on Snapchat, you're gonna be judged. And so the world of interaction online became a very nuanced world where age gap is a very important factor, and understanding how different generations deal with technology is very important. Gen Z and Gen X and millennials and Gen Alpha, including today, right? And including baby boomers also who populate the space that we live together in on platforms such as Facebook, for example, who went very mainstream. This is it. If you have any thoughts about this presentation, please leave a comment below. And I'm gonna leave this discussion for you to participate on. Okay? Thank you very much for listening. This is Participatory Fluency. Ivo Escobar contributing for one more uh, online public class. Thank you very much.